Nice to see all of you, and thank you so much for coming, and thank you, Faye, for that, and for facilitating everything. And many of the people in this audience were really part of this journey. Just to listen to me when you walk for over an hour, they deserve a medal. But I think a good way to begin, basically, would be, you know, you hear about the term now, moving forward, and if you just look the book, you see other books moving forward. But I was very clear to say this is moving forward because it's the widow's journey, and that is my journey. I think it would be helpful to know the story, basically, of how this became the title. And what happened is I work for an online university that's based in Cincinnati, Ohio. So all the faculty and the staff and the leaders come from all over the country. And so we gather together several times a year, or we did till 2 years ago. We gather together so that we can meet and, you know, work really more than you do. So I have a male friend who's also a colleague. And whenever we gathered, because we had very similar philosophies and social justice issues and whatever, and although we argue all the time, he's a colleague, and so he knew what I had lost and what went on. And every time I came in, he would take me to another restaurant to take me out, and we would have a lovely conversation, and he had a girlfriend, so I was okay. In any case, one time when we went out, it was about 1.5 years after Howard died, we went out and he said, I picked a French restaurant for you and you're going to be happy because it's got the ambiance and it's got the French food and you're going to love it. And I said, oh, goody, goody, you know, I'm in. And so off we go to this restaurant. And two things people tell you, and they don't mean anything bad. They're trying to help you. But people will say to you, it may be time to move on. The other thing they say is, you might want to sell your house, and if you have a little house, move into an apartment. If you have a big house, what do you need? The expense and the work. And those two things really are received very poorly by widows, let me tell you. That is not what you want to hear. But that's what people say because they don't know what else to say, and they want to help you. If any of you remember Linda Blair and The Exorcist, do you remember when the speds? But that's what you want to do to people. You want to spin their head around when they start telling you this. But you have to be nice and receive. So I'm sitting there at this lovely French restaurant, with this lovely meal, and he eats very similar to me. So what we do is we share many courses, as opposed to ordering one plate where you're full between a bread and maybe a glass of wine, and one plate you're full. But we order several courses, and we do that so that we can share and eat lots of different food, so it's good. So we go, hello, 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 nice to see you. So we go and we order our food, and one of the courses is a meat. He eats meat, and I eat meat, not often, but we eat some meat. So one of these courses is meat. And we're sitting there, and he says, you know, Arlene, I wanted to have a conversation with you. And I said, okay. He said, I really wanted to talk to you because it may be time for you to move on. And I say, okay, what does that mean? And he says, well, it's now a point where if you move on, you can maybe open your heart to other people and form relationships. Maybe you even want to move on by, you know, getting out of that big house where you have a lot of responsibility and work. And I'm like baseball, 3 strikes and you're out. I'm sitting there and I'm going, this is not working for me. And I love this, it's a lovely man. And I look to my right and there's cutlery. And one of it, if you go and you're going to, I swear this is true, if you're going to go and you're going to order meat in a lovely restaurant, they give you the steak knife. Those of you who know me, you know exactly what's coming. And the steak knife has this very nice wooden handle. You know, they're all used a little bit. It's nice, and it has the serrated edge. And I'm looking there, and he goes with the third time, and something. I said, you know, let me explain something to you. If you say move on one more time, I am going to pick up the knife and I'm going to lunge across the table. And he's a very peaceful, sensitive, spiritual guy. And so he sits there and he looks down and he says, well, Arlene, maybe we should just think of it in slightly different terms. Maybe you can't move on. Because for me, moving on was leaving Howard somewhere. And I was not about to leave Howard anyway. So he said, maybe you never will be able to move on, but I'll bet you can move forward. And with that, it's not that I never heard the term, the light bulb went off, the chills go in the body. I go, oh, that's something I've done my whole life. I've moved forward. I can do that. And that became this. And this wasn't written for several years, but at that year and a half, I said, oh, that I can do, that I can do. So I got through the meal, he understood, and he gave me the words moving forward. And with that in mind, I'll tell you a story and then I'll read a little bit to you. If you've heard enough reading, just go like this. Stop. It's not a big deal. So anyway, the best way I can describe the process of moving forward after losing someone so close to you is by comparing the process to a train ride. When you envision a train, you can picture a long line of separate compartments. And life moves forward from the last compartment to the first compartment. And as you progress in life, you slowly move from one car to the next, eventually shutting the door of one and opening the door of another, until it's time to move forward again. That moving forward, letting go of one door and stretching for the next one, often shakes every part of you. You know, like you see the train and somebody shaking between the doors, that's what you're like when you've got to move to the next compartment. Mostly you're trembling across the unknown. When I lost the love of my life, I was keenly aware of every single moment, often as if it were in slow motion. I chose to open the door and reach for the next compartment, still seeing the compartments behind me, but moving forward to the next one, on my own. I find comfort in knowing I can always look back to see and remember everything inside of those compartments, while I also know there is so much to do in the one I'm in now. This book is first and foremost the story of my life with Howard from age 17 to 66. It began with a kind of chemistry that hits like a bolt of lightning. There is actually an Italian phrase for this, colpo dei fulmini, implying a thunderbolt so powerful and intense that it can't be denied. Love may strike this way at first glance, or it may develop quietly over time, from friendship through the first kiss to a quiet mutual recognition. But however it comes, there's no going back. Chemistry wins. For us, that chemistry took hold quickly and never let go for 50 years. I like to describe our life together as a kind of dance. Sometimes we waltzed and twirled effortlessly. Sometimes we engaged in very tight tangos. And sometimes we stepped on each other's toes. But we were always touching and taking turns leading. Since Howard's death, I have had to learn how to dance alone, to move forward with a partner I can't see or feel. I circle the room as the music continues to play and the room continues to spin, knowing I must keep dancing. I believe this book had a life of its own. And it still does. After about 3 years, there were 3 women. And those 3 women, who didn't know each other, never met each other, one told me after 3 years in August, one in September, and one in October, said to me, you know, Arlene, you have a process and you should write this down. And I said, what process? I don't have a process. They said, yeah, you have like a goal for the year. And you meet this goal, Because sometimes we want to do something in the house and we're going to do it in March, and then you don't end up doing it to the fall. But if you give yourself a whole year, you don't get angry. You go, oh, I have a whole year, this is going to happen. And it happens. So in year 1, I had to repair things because Howard was sick and I couldn't do anything when he was sick. In year 2, I said, oh, papers, I guess I better put the house in my name. I have to do a will. I have to change banks. So I did all that in year 2. And these women at the end of year 3 each said to me, you need to do this. I said, you need to write this. And I said, I don't think so. That's not going to happen. And then at the end of year 4, the same thing happened. I saw the same 3 women, August, September, October. We had the same conversation. And then at the end of year 4, I went to my hairdresser, who happens to be sitting in the And what do you do when you're at your hairdresser's and you need dye on your head for 32 minutes? You talk to them. God knows what you tell them, God knows what they hear, what they think, but they're paying attention and they're here. You know, I'm sitting 30 book. Yeah, he is. So he told me, he said to me, I said, you know, these 3 women, blah, blah, blah. Year 3, it's year 4. And he goes, they're right, Arlene. You should write this down. I have many people who get stuck, and there are others who move forward. And he said, I have 2 clients, by the way, number 1 and number 2. He said they came to me and they also lost their spouses, one after 25 years and one after 47 years. And they came to me and they told me about how they stayed in their house, they fixed their house, and you should talk to them. And I said, well, that sounds very nice, but I can't go around calling somebody up and say, I have a dead husband and you have a dead husband, we should talk. They're going to think I'm a lunatic, right? So I said, but if you want to make an introduction, either call them or either email them, or the next time they come in. He said, no, you should write this and you should talk to these 2 women. So I said, okie dokie. And sure enough, he did contact them and they wanted to speak with me. So that was all great. I was thrilled. I did meet with them. I talked to them. But it wasn't until year 5 that I actually started to write this book. And I'm going to read you something, because after those 2 women, this happened. In the process of writing the book, and quite by surprise at first, I was joined by 13 other widows, eager to share their stories with me. They came to see me one by one as a result of a few thoughtful people telling me they knew women who had been widows and I should call them. They brought them to me. I said, this book has a life of its own. And I like to think that I don't choose these stories, they come to me. The fact that these women turned out to be a diverse group with sharply differing experiences and perspectives was as unexpected as everything about this process. They come from different cultures, the Christian, Jewish, Black, Asian, Hispanic, European, and different countries. The United States, Japan, Portugal, France, Cuba, India, Jamaica. They are various ages from 34 to 82 and sexual orientations. Their spouses died from illnesses or accidents. Some of them had adult children at the moment their widowhood began. Some had teenagers, some had infants, and some no children at all. One actually had lost a husband previously, and this was his second. I hope that by sharing their experiences in my book, along with my own, I've presented a variety of role models so that for other women, and that the story of each woman in this book will be relatable to a particular reader who needs to hear it. We've all gone through the process of moving forward after being widowed, and we have all talked about that process very frankly. These women have become my heroes. Those of you who went through this with me and spoke with me, you are my heroes. And the fact that they came and they were willing to share their stories. I am eternally grateful for that. I would like to talk to you about choices. I know we make choices and we don't even realize sometimes, but we make them throughout life. But when you are left alone, you are making choices that you never even dreamed of. Not because you're not capable, but you just never planned it. And so I've made different types of choices throughout the last X number of years. And the first group of choices I made, and I had no plan to do this, happened immediately. Right after Howard was buried, and I sat quiet for a week. Right after that, I don't know what happened, but I decided 3 things. I choose to wear black for a year. I choose not to listen to music, and I choose not to dance. How this came into my head, I don't know. But I will read you the rationalization which came. Wearing black is a traditional expression of mourning in many cultures, including our own. Though American widows today tend not to adhere to such rigorous customs, I decided this discipline suited me, and immediately moved the rest of my clothes out of my closet, kept only the black ones. For 1 year, I'd focus my energies on getting through each day and maintaining my emotional sanity, not on what outfit I might need to wear. What I soon discovered that this choice not only freed me from issues of fashion, appearance, impression, it also set me on a path of simplicity. It became easier to move through the day, and at the day's end, drop my clothes in the laundry basket, take a really hot shower, and crawl into bed. When the next day arrived, simplicity prevailed once more. Year 1 went by in this fashion, or lack of it. No music. Whatever era we come of age in my case it was the 60s, we all remember beloved music and lyrics of the day. What's more, throughout the course of a long relationship, certain songs accrue special meaning. Music has a way of evoking memories, moments, and firsts, as nothing else can, and producing what's known as a frisson. That's a kind of shiver, like an electric shock that goes through you. I knew that getting through all the milestones of year 1, birthdays, anniversaries, special occasions, would be difficult. I decided it might be easier to weather these occasions without the additional associations, feelings called up by music that had become meaningful to Howard and me. One of these songs, Yes, I'm Ready, another, My Cup Runneth Over. Add to those the romantic strains of Johnny Mathis, Roberta Flack, and all the romantic slow dance music of those years. Operatic arias did that, Broadway show tunes, even Hallmark commercials. Those jingles could set off floods of feeling. So I made a conscious effort to avoid this stimulus during year 1, knowing that eventually these songs might provide comfort rather than pain. The no dancing part. Remembering the shared feelings, the closeness, the touch can be overwhelming when it's not there. I had often described life with Howard as a dance, so when that dance ended, it made sense for me to take a break from literal dancing. Again, this left me more able to focus on what I needed to accomplish. It also offered me an excuse for declining invitations to parties and gatherings, which spared me the experience of sitting at a table while the music and other couples spun around me. Not attending parties was a beneficial result of my moratorium on music and dancing. My choices fit together, and they fit me. Those were my initial choices that happened immediately. Another year goes by, and you know you have to start doing certain things. One of which was I had the privilege of always entertaining. A nice house, nice wood table by the kitchen that was real cozy for some dinners, nice glass table, fancier dinners for work. So I decided to invite 2 couples for practice dinners. One were my friends Gail and Jim, who live in the community, and another were my friends Anna and Luis, who are from Portugal but live in Miami, but not in our area. So I invite Gail and Jim over, and I explain this is a practice dinner, don't expect anything. So I said, okay, what's the simplest thing? So I made a salad and shrimp and a veggie. And Gail said, I'll bring dessert. I said, oh, goody, goody. So I put out the salad, and everything's fine. It's green, it's got tomatoes, it's got what it should. I put out the salad, and we finish. And so I say, okay, I'm gonna take 2 plates, because there were 3. And Gail got up and picked up the other plate. And I took the fork and the knife, whatever was with the salad, and I go over from the little wood table over to the sink. And when I go over there, Gail follows with the other plate. And I said, how am I doing? She said, Arlene, you're doing great. I said, oh, goody, goody. She said, there's only one thing. I said, oh, God. She said, well, when you took the fork and the knife from the salad, you cleared everything. You took the forks and knives from dinner, you took the coffee spoons, you took the dessert spoon, you took the napkins. She said, it would be good if you gave it back to us. Okay, so I knew right away that was a practice, it did work. Then I have the Condis, Anna and Luis. A month later, I got this down. I know to leave the silverware. I got it. So we go, and I made the same meal though, because I knew how to do this and I knew it worked. Same salad, we have the salad. I took the right silverware away. Now I get the 3 plates to put the dinner on it. I put the shrimp on it, and I made rice in my rice cooker. Now I'm very proud of my rice cooker because it takes 2 hours to do brown rice, so I'm sure it's better because it takes 2 hours. So I go and I put the shrimp on the plate. They had the salad. I go over to the rice cooker, flip open the lid, and I realize I never put water or chicken broth or whatever in the rice is a brick. And I'm standing there like really like a fool, like this, banging on the rice. And Anna immediately gets up and she goes, I see what happened. Don't worry about it. You had some French bread with the salad. We're going to have the rest of the French bread with the shrimp. Don't worry. And she makes the best chocolate mousse, so the meal was great. But those were my 2 practice things. Be certain that a year later I had them both back and the dinners were normal. They were fine. They were in practice. I left the silverware, the rice I never made again for anybody, but that was that. So those were experiences where it was a first. Was it a successful first? No. Did it help move me forward? Absolutely, because eventually I could have people to eat. This one I'm going to read to you because this is about you take a risk, you don't know what you're doing, and what happens is I was able to have my first real laugh. 3 years after Howard died, my friend Bud was planning a trip to Barcelona with a couple and invited me to join them. I said I'd think about it. Hung up the phone, looked in the mirror, and said, I don't think so. They were leaving in 2 weeks. How could I consider it? And Barcelona could have been Mars. When I mentioned the invitation to my daughter, she didn't hesitate. And she said, just go. Get on that plane and go. You can afford a ticket. Bud will take care of you, and you might even have a good time. And if you're not doing anything right, get on a plane and come home. Change the ticket and come home. I had never even met this other couple, ever. But I trusted Bud, and as you know, for those of you who know, I think trust is everything. So after a bit more thought, I embraced the idea and said yes. As it worked out, I had to travel to Spain and back alone. I found my way to the hotel without incident and was welcomed by warm and wonderful people. What I'd never expected, and I mean never, was that I'd experienced a major first on Sunday, December 18th, 2016, having survived walking with my old friend Bud and my new ones through what we call in Miami hurricane season. It was a torrential storm. It was coming down. My shoes actually fell apart as we were walking. It was horrible. And we went through this torrential rainstorm to a restaurant called Seven Portas. We took one look at our bedraggled, soggy selves and started laughing. My companions laughed, and I laughed right along with them. This was one of those exuberant, overpowering belly laughs, the kind I had not experienced in 3 years. We dried off as best we could, sat, ordered food, laughing all the while. I continued to laugh with the other woman. We just couldn't stop. And so happy tears started to come down from laughing. And along with that, my head almost hit the table because we were laughing so hard. So then they were laughing at me. Anyway, I had not really laughed in 3 years, but that night the spell was broken. So those were things that I tried to do that were very hard for me. A little bit later on, I also developed certain concepts. And when I did discuss some of these with the other widows, they said, that's right. And one of which was about being almost happy. It's a hard concept to understand if you haven't walked in these shoes. Because, you know, you lose your parent, I'm not even going to go if something happens to a child, but you lose your parent, you get through that. You lose your spouse, it's like you lost an arm after so many years. So 5 years after Howard's death, I began to feel happiness again. Within limits, I guess you could say I was almost happy. The return of joy surprised me, but I knew it was real. At times, I'd catch myself singing or whistling around the house, but then something would remind me of Howard and I'd fall back into sad reverie. I came to understand that being almost happy was a balancing act that would probably continue for a very long time. I decided that being almost happy might be good enough. It wasn't really so bad to dwell in a peaceful state where I was fully able to enjoy the moment or the day or an experience. So what if challenges loomed on the horizon? That is part of moving through the world, something I am proud to be able to do. And the second concept, that actually when I spoke to every one of the other widows, the second thing they said to me, basically, was to get rid of negative people. So there's a way to look at this where it's not a bad thing to say, where some people no longer fit. So this may be hard to fathom when you have experienced a loss, but you may not need all the friends you get. What I'm trying to say is that your life just changed profoundly, and there may be some perfectly lovely or not so lovely people in it who no longer fit. It's not their fault. It's not your fault. As your needs change, as you change, there will be some collateral loss. The first people to let go of are those who are negative by their very nature. When you had a partner, perhaps this negativity didn't affect you so much. We tend to be more tolerant of our friends' quirks when we have a partner to lean on. But after a loss as profound as a spouse's death, we are already fighting against the clouds that surround us. The last thing we need is someone bringing more bad weather into our lives. And I did have one widow who said this so much better than I could. She's a tough girl. And her name is Nettie. She's in the book. Nettie also advocated for the elimination of negativity. I have no time for drama, she said. I think of negative people, and I do love this phrase, as energy vampires. They suck the life out of you. It was just warm when she said this. And don't get me started on trying to fix them. That just is impossible. Sometimes you have to bite the bullet, get yourself some new friends who provide what you need, some measure of peace. And I would like to conclude because I concluded in the book, so I'm just going to go right there. While widowhood isn't one experience, there are many things about it that do seem constant. I have shared with you many of the fears, concerns, problems, situations I have faced along my own path and gone on to interview others about these same matters. Should I stay in my marital home? Will I ever feel like seeking out a new partner? Why don't people understand that I don't want to join the party? And maybe I never will. Although the answers to these questions are as unique as the women with whom I spoke, I've discovered that we in the Widows Club, and I know a lot of don't like to be called widows, but that's what, feel the same way about a lot of things, and that in itself is extremely comforting. I'm not alone in this experience. I'm not the first to feel these feelings, and neither are you. If there's a theme running through this book, it is that of moving forward hour by hour, day by day, year by year. My journey is one illustration of how this might look, and each of the other women in this book have painted her own picture, shared her own processes, time frames, triumphs, and wisdom. And it has taken me a long time to gain the perspective necessary to write moving forward, but that has been part of my journey too. I am so much stronger and more capable than I was a few years ago. The view ahead has grown so much clearer, while looking back has become easier and less fraught with grief. I thank you for sharing a bit of my journey with you, and I wish you well along your journey.